Arsenal might not have any games on right now, but the fans still have questions, and that is what I am here for today. I'm going to be answering some of the best questions I could find across the internet and bringing you all of my answers here on the Arsenal Roundup. Let's get into it. Yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, your 3 times a week dose of Arsenal coverage with me, your host Mark. This is an episode of the Arsenal Roundup, our kind of weekly news show, but at the moment there isn't much news. So instead today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a mailbag episode. I've been on Blue Sky, I've found 5 questions that I really like. I haven't done too much prep on them because I want these answers to be authentic and off the cuff. I've just collected these 5 questions. I'm going to answer them here for you today. Before I get started, I really hope wherever you are well, your family are well, and you are enjoying a nice break from Arsenal. If you are not well, reach out to me, reach out to someone, and make sure you are looking after yourself in the best way that you can. Don't be lonely, I guess is my point on that. Reach out. The Arsenal community is a great one, and there are always people here to chat and talk to you and help you out. So, shall we get into it? First of all, a disclaimer. These are completely bootlegged from the ArseCast and Arsenal Vision podcast. Those guys get tons and tons of questions every single time they do a mailbag, and I thought I would jump on and find my favourites and answer them in my context. I haven't listened to those podcasts yet, though, so I may have picked some that they've picked as well, and you may have already heard some people's answers to these. Obviously, if you're here, you probably listened to those guys. So enjoy their answers as well, but these are going to be my takes on some of these questions, and they might be different as well. So let's see. The first one comes from Virtual Hog at nightpig.org on Blue Sky. He asks, would Sesko and Zubamendi be sufficient this summer to set us up for next season, or do you think additional signings are required? Without trying to count chickens before they hatch, those two would put us north of £100 million spent, and I wonder if you see other areas of pressing need. Great question, because look, Zubamendi, we understand is pretty close to being our player, not officially, but the reports coming out from David Ornstein in, I think it was early January, wasn't it, around that player, were Arsenal were really confident. His release clause is about 51 million. I think Sesko is probably going to be a little bit more than that by the time we get round to the summer, sort of 60, north of 60. I don't know if they'll go to 70, but if we get both of those players done, that will be absolutely brilliant. But I think there are a couple of other areas, absolutely. First of all, we desperately need a wide player. And for me, there is only one side to address on this, because we found Ethan Nwaneri as a very nice backup to Saka, and to be fair, how do you buy a backup to Saka that is only a backup to Saka? If Ethan Nwaneri could be backup to Martin Odegaard and backup to Bukayo Saka, that I think solves 2 problems there, which is great. So that's fantastic. I think left wing is absolutely a must, and I almost think left wing is more important than centre forward in a very weird way, because Trossard is sort of ageing out, and Trossard could become a second man up front. Well, you still have to do tons of running, but you don't need that blistering split speed you need on the left wing. So he could move into that spot. Of course, we still have Gabriel Jesus. We really don't know what he's going to be like when he comes back, but he's still an Arsenal player. Whereas I think Trossard will age out of the left wing spot, and Martinelli hasn't become the player that we wanted. So I think that is number one most pressing. For me, that's more pressing than a forward, because I think Kai Havertz can lead the line for Arsenal and be a really good player and contribute to a title-winning season. He was imperative in coming just 2 points shy of winning the title. So I don't see why he couldn't be a first-choice player. I just think he needs the support around him. And I do think if we could sign a left winger that was really top level and kind of give us what we hoped Martinelli would become, because I think we're seeing Martinelli's probably more at that squad level for us now. A good player, he works really hard, he's doing a good job. Is he that elite level talent that we hoped? I don't think he is or has the capacity to be. So definitely left wing. Let's let's have a think about the rest of the squad. Well, I guess a lot of it depends on what happens with Partey and Jorginho. If one of them stays, I think Zubimendi's enough. If both of those guys go out of their contract, we absolutely need to be bringing in another midfielder, because I think you've then got kind of, if you're looking at your depth chart, you've got Odegaard and Nwaneri for that right 8 spot, you've got Rice and Merino for the left 8 spot, and then you'd need Zubimendi and someone else for the 6. I know Rice can go in there, of course, but we've seen how difficult it is signing players to cover multiple positions. And then when you lose them, like Tomiyasu, you lose a lot of cover for a lot of positions. So that's difficult. And I think that's probably the next place to go, isn't it? Finding a new Tomiyasu, or a new defender, I should say, because Timber can play across the whole back line. But Tomiyasu was a really astute signing for us, in the sense that he was cheap and could play all of those positions really, really well. I think Tomiyasu probably doesn't have a career left at Arsenal, which is really sad to say, because I like him as a player. And it also looks like we'll probably lose Zinchenko and definitely Kieran Tierney. So that'll be 3 options lost. I think left back's locked up in terms of Calafiori and MLS. I think that's fine. Ben White and Timber are kind of right back cover. And yes, Calafiori, Timber and White can all play centre back, but I do think there's probably another element of we need to sign a new centre back. Furthermore, is there a need to sign a second goalkeeper? We could be really busy this summer. We could be really busy. Just talking through all that there, Sesko and Zubimendi, they feel like really that we're most far along with those guys, right? So that could be done. Another midfielder potentially, if we don't re-sign Partey or Jorginho, a left winger, a defender, and a second choice goalkeeper. We could be really busy. I really don't know how good Tommy Setford is. We've not seen him yet. I can't see us making Neto permanent after his one display. Really did not look like an Arsenal keeper. So I think there's a lot of areas of pressing need. And to be fair, this is probably, when you talk it through like that, this is probably another reason why I just can't see us going for Isak. I just can't see it happening in any way, shape or form. 150 million quid. Let's say they don't make the Champions League, right, and they drop their evaluation to 120 because he's trying to force the move or whatever. Even at 120 million quid, that is an obscene amount of money. Throw Zubimendi on top of that. We're looking at 170, and that's before you've even addressed the left wing, before you've addressed the fact that we've kind of not got great centre-back cover. Got Kivior, that's about it. If you consider White, Timber and Calafiori as fullbacks. So yeah, I think we've got a lot to do. So I think there's a lot of pressing need, and whilst Sesko and Zubimendi would be great and would start us off really well in the summer business, there's still more additional signings required, I think. Okay, cool. Lovely question from Virtual Hog. Obviously, it was submitted to the ArseCast originally. Another one submitted to the ArseCast originally, which I'm going to answer right now, is from mb273.bsky.social. They ask, it feels inevitable that Nwaneri will hit has to play status, along with Odegaard and Saka. When he does, how do we play them all? Odegaard left 8, Nwaneri at 9, even Saka is 9. I think he has all the attributes for it, and his numbers could go up even more. Great question, one I've thought about myself, because when Saka comes back, he will obviously get his place back. He is that level of player. You don't keep him on the bench. And Odegaard is our captain, and he's brilliant. I know he's not in lightning form right now, but he's still playing pretty well. And Nwaneri is probably our most efficient finisher this year. So yeah, we've got to try and figure them all in. I've just spoken in the last one about that depth chart where Nwaneri could cover both. I don't think he will go to has to play status by the end of this season. Well, he is in terms of the injuries, but let's say everyone was fit by the end of the season. I don't think he'll reach has to play status then, and I'm not even sure he'll reach it the year after next. He is 18. There is a lot more for him to learn outside of just, his raw talent is clearly exceptional. He's fitting into the tactic well. He's doing the things that Arteta wants of him. On the pitch, he's absolutely delivering. But he is 18, and we as fans all want him to go out and be like Cesc Fabregas was. But Cesc Fabregas is literally like 1 in a million. A player that can come in to the team at 16 and basically never give his place back. I really think that looking at the composition of the squad that we have right now, Arteta will look to protect him. He will be more involved next year, for sure, and for the rest of this year. But will he reach that has-to-play level? I don't think so. I can't see him, getting deployed in a crunch game against Liverpool unless we have to. So this year, it might be a we have to play him scenario. But if everyone's fit and we're playing Liverpool, we're playing Manchester City, we're playing Tottenham or Chelsea, is Arteta going to expose our teenagers to that? If you're good enough, you're old enough, I understand that. But, we've got to make sure that these guys have really long careers at this club and love this club and stay fit as well. That's a big thing for young players growing up. So I don't think he will hit that has-to-play status. But let's say, how would I get them all in? I personally love the idea of Odegaard at left 8. I don't know what it is about it. It's attracted me for a little while. And I think in games where we could look to dominate the ball a lot, there is a world where Declan Rice is plenty good enough at progressing the ball from 6 for games where, we're not too threatened by a press. And Odegaard and Nwaneri could play the 2-8s. I think it makes more sense to push Odegaard out to the left-hand side, but simply because he is just an older, slightly better player, and leave Nwaneri more in his more natural side as well, because it would give Nwaneri the opportunity to get into those finishing positions that he's found. And I wonder as well if when Odegaard gets a chance, he'd benefit from being just slightly closer to the goal, which our left 8 tends to end up there. So, yeah, I think that would be it. I can't see Saka at 9. He gets kicked a lot as it is. If we put him in that central space with like a Dan Burn or trying to think now, anyone really, any of the centre backs, they're all pretty brutal in the Premier League. I think they really target him, and I think that whilst he could probably hold his own, I don't think that lends to his skill set. And I think Nwaneri as a 9, he might become a 9. We really don't know. He's 17 years old. I can't see it right now. Again, for a very similar reason, if you throw a 17-year-old up against Premier League centre-backs, they are going to go for them. So, yeah, good question. For me, I don't think it will be for a while, but when we get to that point, I would go Odegaard at left 8, like you suggested there, MB273. And, I like the question, though. It is a problem that we're going to have very, very soon. That was, as well, asked to the ArseCast as well, so... thank you for those guys for allowing me to piggyback, although, I'm not sure I asked permission, but I'm sure they won't mind. Cool. Gallopingtheglobe.bsky.social says, are there any midfield or defensive players you'd bring up to a forward position given the injuries / difficulties up front? Now, I think this was a question to Arsenal Vision podcast. This conversation has gone around a lot online and on the podcast space recently, hasn't it? And, no, is my answer. We are going to have a backup plan. We are going to have some way of getting these guys off the pitch. But for me, there is 4 players or still who can play in those spots, and we should absolutely prioritize those guys first. And we might, bring a defender or a midfielder forward just to cover for a period of time. The only person I can really see that working with is Kieran Tierney, a left wing. And I think for me, Raheem Sterling has to cover Ethan Nwaneri. Again, I think he's better on the left, but if he can get Ethan Nwaneri off at 60 minutes, that's probably best for his physical development. And I think Trossard has to cover Havertz. Now, how he's going to do that starting at left wing, I don't really know. Whether they'll rotate the 90s of Havertz will do a 90, and then we'll have a scenario where Trossard does a 90, but he does half of it from left wing. Kieran Tierney comes on for Havertz. Tierney goes left wing. Trossard goes through the middle. I think that's probably the only thing we can do. It's really, really difficult, isn't it? Because that's talking about how we rest people. If we get another injury, we need a solution to change the game. You could argue that we need a solution to change the game regardless. I think Kieran Tierney really is the only person I can think of. I can't see Calafiori being that guy. Marino at centre forward has been discussed. I'm really not sure about that either. I don't know if he is technically at the level. He's clearly physically at the level, but is he technically at the level? It's a very different position as well, so it would be a lot of learning. I think it's more, you've got more of a chance of someone like Kieran Tierney adapting to a left wing spot than you do a kind of box-to-box number 8 like Mikel Merino adapting to a kind of false 9-9 style that Kai Havertz plays. So, yeah, really difficult. That really is the only option for me. I'm racking my brain trying to think of something that I think would work, but that's it for me. I prefer the idea, and I don't know how people will feel about this, but I prefer the idea of, if we were to have another issue or we needed to rest players more, I prefer to go to a 2 up front system and maybe go to a diamond in midfield with Partey at the base, Rice and Marino in the centre mid spots, but still doing their work to get out wide. Odegaard in the 10 with Havertz and Trossard up front. It puts a lot of pressure on our fullbacks, that system. But, we've seen Rice operate in the kind of wide left spaces. We've seen Odegaard operate in the wide left spaces. And Havertz and Trossard could dip out there as well. So I think there's potential in that, but otherwise, I think in answer to the question is only Kieran Tierney at left wing. I'm going to take a short break from answering these questions. I'll come back with 2 more right after this. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you're like me, you finished watching an Arsenal game and you're already looking for the next bit of Arsenal coverage you can find. If that sounds like you, follow or subscribe to Arsenal Unfiltered on your podcast app of choice right now to make sure you don't miss a single episode from me. I'm here 3 times a week, reviewing matches and covering Arsenal news, and I'm so excited to have you all here as well. Thank you very much. Hello, and welcome back to this episode of the Arsenal Roundup. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much, ArseCast and the Arsenal Vision podcast, for having such a big following that I can steal some of your questions online and use it for my own mailbag. It's really, really helpful. And I hope you're enjoying this episode, something slightly different. Hopefully we will get an opportunity to do more mailbags in the future, but it felt like a good thing to do whilst Arsenal were in this kind of break period. Let's get back into them then. I've got 2 more, and I think these are great questions, both posed to the Arsenal Vision podcast. The first one comes from Peter Lingland, peterlingland.bsky.social. If you could take one specific skill, quality, or ability that Wenger excelled at and add it to Arteta, which one would it be and why? I think that's a cracking question, and that's why I picked it out from the list that Arsenal Vision have created. It's a tough one though, because Arteta is, for me, has done a fantastic job. I'm going to say the kind of ability to take attacking players and kind of repurpose them into a different role, different ability. And I think of players like Samir Nasri, and Thomas Rosicky, who came in as, out and out 10s, and kind of Wenger started a lot of his 10s, or a lot of his younger players as well, out in wide areas and then brought them in centrally. And some players actually, they went out there and stayed out there. Nasri off the wings was great for us. He obviously did play some time in the middle, but he was very comfortable off the left and off the right. Same with Rosicky. Alex Hleb is another name that comes to mind, where Wenger kind of signed him in one position and then ended up using him all across that kind of 4-2-3-1, all across that 3 that he had behind the striker for a long period. So, yeah, I think we just need something like that right now. It would be lovely to have a player, similar to Nwaneri, that we could deploy in game in multiple different ways. And I think we have that, backwards from the forward line. You've got Declan Rice, who can go in the same game, can go from a marauding left 8 back into a double pivot, sort that out and go back into the marauding left 8. You can see Miles Lewis-Skelly playing orthodox left back role, suddenly comes inside, he's a defensive midfielder, and then back You've got someone like Urian Timber, play all across the back line. You've got Ben White, who can step into centre back or step in at right back, either or. He's brilliant at both. I think we've got tons of that flexibility in the kind of first 2/3 of the pitch, but we don't have that up top. I've never seen Bukayo Saka on the left wing. Martinelli, I don't know how well he's really doing at right wing. I think he gets the system, but I don't know how much he's affecting the games. Kai Havertz, I guess, is probably the best example of he was brought as an 8, but now plays as a striker. But again, we very rarely now see him deployed back as an 8. So I think we've got it in certain bits of the pitch, but having that kind of flexibility with players and having someone who we could put on the pitch, around Martin Odegaard, who is an attacking midfielder, or a winger or someone like that, but it's not clear how they're going to play. I think that would be really, really useful. You never really knew how someone like Santi Cazorla was going to play, right? You never really knew whether he was starting kind of in the 10 role or off the left or kind of in the kind of 6 role that he eventually kind of moved into in that central midfield role. You never really knew what he was going to do. And I just think some of our players are maybe a little bit telegraphed right now. Martinelli, I've spoken about many times, it's a bit clear what he's going to do too early. And I think maybe we could do with a player like that and Wenger's ability to identify those players, bring them in and keep them being flexible was second to none. And, if Wenger could have signed another Patrick Vieira and another Sol Campbell, we would be sat on plenty more Premier League titles than we are. Unfortunately, he didn't have quite the defensive coaching nous and defensive recruitment nous that Arteta's got. So, something like that, I think. Attacking recruitment, ability to mould attacking players into different roles and coach them in different ways. I think that would be my call. Great question, Peter Lingland. Again, for the Arsenal Vision podcast from Arsenal Moya, MOIA, arsenalmoya.bsky.social. Final question for today. Do you think all our key players sign renewals, or do you think we have at least one big exit this summer? Ooh, spicy question. I guess by key players, we're talking kind of in the realms of Bukayo Saka, Martin Odegaard, Declan Rice, Saliba, Gabriel, all of those sort of players. Now, I think Saliba is the one that everyone's talking about. He's got the most interest from Real Madrid. There are a number of things that can lead to a big exit, isn't there? I don't think we've got a culture where someone's going to down tools, but I think there is a world where one of our players says, look, I will play really, really hard for you until the end of my contract, and then I want to go. And I think there is a world where, as well, sometimes you're just tempted. I've always thought if Barcelona and Real Madrid come in for a player, how many players don't go there? I mean, one for the weather, that's always a win. But 2, just for the heritage and the history of those clubs and the ability to win trophies as well. At Arsenal, you can win trophies. There is a high chance that this group will win a trophy at some point soon. Will you win it with the frequency that Barcelona and Real Madrid are able to in La Liga, in the Copa del Rey, in the Champions League? I don't know. And I don't know if, apart from Manchester City, we'll ever see a team kind of go with their level of dominance like they have. I don't know if we will see that. Even in England, it was only 7 years, really, that Arsenal and Manchester United traded those blows. And it's been about 7 years for Arsenal, Man City and Liverpool trading those blows. Someone always comes along and disturbs it. Chelsea came along. Manchester City were obviously a team that came along and disturbed the hierarchy. So I think there are always reasons, legitimate reasons outside of what Arsenal do, that mean a big player might leave. Yeah. It's not going to be Declan Rice. He's come to Arsenal. He's come for a long period and signed for a lot of money. I think he loves it here. I think he's made his career choice, and I think that's important. I don't think it would be Martin Odegaard either. I think, he's wedded to the club. He's the captain, and he has found a home now, having taken a long time to find a home. I have a nervousness that it could be Bukayo Saka at some point in his career, but I don't think it would be this summer. I think he would have at least one more contract with Arsenal. The only reason I say that is because it's so rare for people to be one club players now. So is there a chance he goes somewhere else to try something different when he's 28, 29? I think absolutely. But we're a long way away from that, and we've probably got another contract with Bukayo Saka. Do I think Saliba goes this summer? I mean, we don't know how far Real Madrid will go with the money. I think if anyone bids 150 million for one of your players, you can't really justify turning it down because of how transformative that could be for the club. No one is bigger than the club, and the money that you could generate from selling Saliba for that sort of money could be crazy. Do I think Real Madrid will go that high? No. Do I think Saliba's worth more than 80 million? Absolutely. So really, I think it's, the muted number is 80 million. If we sold him at 80 million, I'd be fuming. But then, if we went to 130 million, 120, 130 million, and Arsenal accepted that, I'd kind of get it. I wouldn't be happy about it. I don't want William Saliba to go. I think he's brilliant. He's one of my favourite players. But I think if there was one big player to go, it'd be him. Just because of the reasons I just laid out on the other three. And yeah, I don't want him to go, but it's a tough number to turn down. Could you sign a player that is not as good as William Saliba, but does 90% of what William Saliba does, and then another player who would give you something else in another part of the pitch, or redo the training ground, expand the Emirates, raise your ability to generate funds so that you're less struggling with PSR. There are tons of things that the club would have to consider at the point someone lays over 100 million quid at your feet. I don't see that happening. I don't. I really think Arteta has so much control and influence in this club that he is going to kick up a fuss if anyone says, yeah, we're going to take William Saliba from you. So I just don't see that happening, and the plan is revolving around Mikel Arteta more than it revolves around William Saliba. So I think they'll stick with what he wants to do and keep Saliba. But I think if there was one, it would be Saliba, and I think it would be for those reasons that just sometimes another club comes in and it's massive. For me, what I think is more likely to happen is these players will leave kind of once the job is done, almost. I think, you can't ask a professional to not maximise their career nowadays. Long gone are the days of Steven Gerrard and Jamie Carragher and players like that where they stay at one club for the whole time. People want to move on, try different experiences, and I get that and I understand that. And you shouldn't limit your career prospects as a professional footballer. I do think that the club has a good enough culture, however, that these players will feel connected enough to go, actually, I want to make sure that we leave, with a couple of trophies. And I think that will most likely drive it. Let's go back to the Saliba example. I think if he picks up a couple of Premier Leagues, he's going to go, cool, job done. Job done. When are Real Madrid calling? And I would not, be angry about that. I wouldn't be upset because, like I say, professional football, you can't limit your career options because you have such a short career. And after that, you're done. So I wouldn't be angry at that, but, I would be extremely disappointed if he left this summer. But 100 plus million pounds talks, guys. 100 plus million pounds talks. Okay, cool. I'm going to leave it there for this episode of the Arsenal Roundup. Not much news going on, so it's difficult to do a news show when there's not much news going on. Obviously, we know Martinelli's injury. We spoke about that on the last episode. Saka, he's back in training, and we've seen photos of him doing kind of stepped up work, so that's great. I think we all need to maybe calm a little bit because I still don't think he looks anywhere near kind of like he's going to be on a pitch. We're seeing pictures of him in the gym doing side lunges and getting very excited. How brutal is the scar on his leg, by the way? We're all getting very excited. I don't think that means he's going to be anywhere near back for early March, as some reports are saying. I think we need to be cautious, and then we can be pleasantly surprised rather than disappointed that he's not back for early March. Like I said, these were questions from the ArseCast mailbag request on Blue Sky and the Arsenal Vision mailbag request on Blue Sky. So go listen to those guys. They may have answered some of those questions as well, and we'll probably have excellent takes on it. Obviously, if you're here, you've probably already listened to them. So thank you very much for coming here and listening. All that's left to say is if you've liked this episode, please consider giving a follow wherever you get your podcasts from, or leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts from. Really, really helps me grow the show, and I want to keep bringing you content 3 times a week. Let's hope for a massive result against Leicester on Saturday. I'm going to be previewing that game on Friday or Thursday. It will be out Friday, whether it's out morning or afternoon, I'm not sure yet, but it will be out on Friday, so you can hear my preview of that game, and obviously reviewing it come Sunday. I'm very, very excited to have Arsenal back. It's been nice to have a little break, but I'm done with it now. I want to watch Arsenal play football again. And all that's left to say is thank you for following, thank you for listening, and I will speak to you very, very soon.